Hi, I'm Jenny Milana, and we're here with Fire Chief Darren O'Brien to discuss Article 14, which is going to be voted on in Londonderry on March 10th. First, let's talk about the article itself. So, Chief, why don't you explain what it is, how it came about, and we'll get into why it's needed after the fact.
Well, we went through the budget process this year with the town council, and through this budget process, I identified that, we've been trying now for several years to add to the personnel on the department. Back in 2009, the department was tasked to put out a strategic plan, and during the strategic plan, it identified the need for personnel, to increase our staffing model from what we have now at 10 personnel per group to 14. So this is just a phase in this process to try and, meet those standards. And the article went about basically, I was confronted by some concerned citizens that wanted to see additional staff added to the fire department, so they put together a citizens petition, and within a short period of time we had the signatures needed to make it go forward. And so yeah, it's very exciting. I'm glad to have the support, and hopefully everything will go well on March 10th.
Sounds good. So, quickly, give us a description about the types of calls that come in. What do firefighters typically respond to? It's not just fires. It's
not just fires anymore. I mean, the days of putting what they used to call the wet stuff on the red stuff is no longer. 85% of our calls are all medically based now. With the we have 3 ALS ambulances, 1 at each fire station. We've done this staffing model since August of 2012. So what we've done is we've put 3 individuals, a lieutenant, a paramedic, and a firefighter at each station. And at each station we have the first run fire engine, an ALS ambulance, and usually a forestry unit. And these respective stations pretty much provide the care to their own district. And but yeah, most of the calls now that you'll find are, I don't consider it a fire department anymore. It's pretty much an emergency service. It's an all hazard mitigation. The old saying goes is when you can't find anybody else, call the fire department, and we come and help.
Right. And you think about calling the 911, and they typically send the fire department nowadays.
Absolutely.
And these calls have gone up substantially in the last year or so, correct?
They have. They've been increasing substantially every year. Last year we're up about 180 calls over the prior year. And what we're finding is, and this is where this brought this concern to me for adding the staff, is that the number of simultaneous calls that we're having. So what that means is, if I have a unit, at the central fire station, they have to respond out on a medical call. So that takes 3 of my guys out of town, immediately, and then shortly thereafter, I either get 1 or 2 more calls.
Gotcha.
So what I'm finding is more and more that the call for mutual aid is needing to come in to respond to emergencies within our own community.
Right.
So, I can give you an example. If we have a major motor vehicle accident, let's say up at the north end of town somewhere, what that does is it pulls the nearest engine company, it pulls the furthest away ambulance, and then the rescue from Central Station. So there's my 9 guys.
Right.
And they're all mitigating this one, particular accident. And I find that it's happening more and more that I have another substantial call somewhere in town that I'm relying on mutual aid coming from, Windham, Derry, Hudson, Nashua. So you're looking at response times from where we're at, 5 to 6 minutes. You're looking at anywhere from 17 to 18 minutes.
Right, which can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So I understand you're working from a strategic plan that began in 2009, and there haven't really been any major increases in your budget. This Article 14 is asking to add 4 new firefighters. When was the last time firefighters were hired?
Back in 2002 is when we did a plan similar to this, and we hired 3, kind of sporadic.
Yep.
And but
so 13 years is quite a while to
13 years,
have a lot of growth.
Everybody else that we've hired since then has been to fill vacancies that have come up throughout the years.
Okay, I see. So with the town growing, and you having to stretch all of these dollars to meet these needs, the article is kind of the beginning of your plan, I understand, to make the department more efficient. And can you kind of explain the amount and how the conditions are such that you're going to need these 4 new firefighters? You know, how are you going to implement this new article?
Well, I think what, we got together with, when the article first came out, it was asking for a substantial dollar amount more than what it was amended to. And we sat back and looked at, different innovative ways that we could save the taxpayers some money. So what I'm going to do, if this passes, is we'll stagger the hiring out. I can do that in a number of ways. I can do it, by, starting the hiring process in July and carry it out over those 12 months. Or I can hire 2 in July and then 2, after the next calendar year. So it just saves that money on the taxpayers doing it that way.
Right.
And I think you'll find that more beneficial because getting 2 in at a time, the training is easier because, taking somebody in, a new recruit, it takes time to get them up to snuff. Londonderry is, faces some, I call it, different needs than other communities.
Right.
We have a different infrastructure here within town. We have an airport, we have 15 miles of interstate highway, we have some pretty significant industrial complexes. So,
Which is growing, I understand. And
very much growing.
I know Bedford and Derry and Salem, they all have assisted living facilities. I understand Londonderry is going to be getting a facility as well, a rather large one compared to what Derry and Salem have. And I also know that New Hampshire happens to be the percent of elderly people to the total population is one of the highest in the entire country. So they end up having obviously a lot more medical needs going forward. And so your need for these guys to come in and assist is even higher. And so the townspeople with the citizens petition got this thing going. It's really just the start, it sounds like, of what we're going to need because of all of this growth and not having any increases in the budget so far and any new guys hired in so long. What is your plan? You mentioned that you're going to stagger them. How quickly do you think Londonderry will see the benefit of these changes?
Well, if this passes in March, the new budget cycle starts in July 1st. So I think we're actually going through a hiring process right now to fill a vacancy. And within that hiring process, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an eligibility list. And so now, come July, if this passes, I can choose off of that list. So we're that further ahead of the game. Basically, if we start in July, it takes usually to get everybody up to snuff with the training that they need, with the challenges that we're faced with here in Londonderry. It takes anywhere from 6 to 8 months to actually see the benefit of that, taking place.
Right.
So, basically, if we get these 4 firefighters, this is the beginning phase in this process to meet our needs that we identified back in 2009.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is obviously the first step to create that infrastructure to support all of this new growth that hasn't really been planned for. And all of this new growth really is going to be needed to help lower property taxes in the long run. The little bit of 7 cents you mentioned, I believe, the article says an increase to a household in Londonderry to have 4 new firefighters to be able to take care of things so that when they call 911 for help, somebody can respond that's coming locally and not 20 minutes away from Derry. Go back a little bit to the discussion about the new growth in Londonderry. And one of those things is that this new assisted living facility. I understand it's much bigger than the other ones that we are familiar with in Derry and Salem and such. We have a lot of new growth in 55 and older communities here that have also popped up a lot as well. So how do you expect that to impact the number of calls you're getting and the needs of the fire department?
Well, I can only base that on, the area communities that we've done the surveys with that have these type of facilities. This is something new to Londonderry. And I see that, for instance, Bedford, they're averaging almost 9.6 calls a day going to these type of facilities. And I don't want to shortchange ourselves to say that, it's not going to impact us, because I know it is. When we had the Elliott Urgent Care come into town here,
Right.
That projection on that was, 6 calls a year. We did 6 calls on the first day.
Wow.
So we're averaging probably 2 or 3 calls out of there a year, I mean a day. And,
Right.
There's more talk about some other, these quick urgent cares coming into town that, do tax our services. So you get a call down there and, I have 3 guys out of town, for an hour at a time.
Right. And the mutual aid you mentioned as well, having to go and help the other towns, it's kind of part of the deal. We expect them to come help us when we need the aid as well. And I understand that it was an issue in the past where we were the ones requesting most of the aid and not giving it as much because we didn't have the support. And if we don't do that, of course, other neighboring towns don't like that very much.
Right.
So how did you, and what happens in that scenario? Do you have to monitor that? I mean, what do you anticipate moving forward?
Yeah, and what we did is, because you're absolutely right, back a few years back, Derry had come to us and said, we're not providing mutual aid to you, we're subsidizing your fire department. So it brought a big concern to us, is what can we do differently? And so, we looked at our area communities and we kind of divided up on who we called. We broke the town up into 4 or 5 different sections. And so now it's not just Derry that's being called. We'll call Windham, we'll call Bedford, we'll call Salem, we'll call Hudson, to come in and help us. And, it's pretty reciprocal. I think last year I got it right here, and you'll see it on the slide, that we did 36% of our time that we gave mutual aid, we received it back 38% of the time. So it's pretty evenly based right now, but what I'm finding more and more just recently is the number of significant calls, I call them significant, but urgent calls, that when all my personnel are tied up,
The
time that it takes for these other communities to get there.
Right.
And that's my concern. I think we should be providing the service here for the members of our community with our own fire department.
And your fire department, I understand too, has not that the other towns don't have similar qualities, but in particular, Londonderry has a very high quality level of quality of people, expertise that are working in the department. So, when you get a call in and you go to an emergency, it's not just an EMT necessarily. You have a lot of different types of people responding. Can you talk a bit more about what they do and how their expertises differ and what the importances are in those?
Yeah, you'll find Londonderry, the personnel that we have in town here are very high. Have a very high level of training, not just for emergency medical services, but we have hazmat technicians. We have, all of our personnel is at least hazmat operations level.
The industry, I imagine we'd have to, so industrial.
We're all certified in crash fire rescue, seeing that we have the airport in town. Below grade rescue, confined space rescue. We have numerous facilities in town that we have to contract with now, that we're their backup service for when they go into these vessels to perform maintenance or cleaning or anything like that. They call the fire department and say, we're going to be in this vessel today from such and such a time. We're putting you on standby in case something happens, that you need to come up and basically get us out. So these are big taxpayers in town that are relying on us to perform these services. And if unfortunately, if the situation arose that this was to happen, and I had, 6 of my guys out of town, now I'm calling in mutual aid from other communities that can't provide the service that we've contracted with these taxpayers to provide.
Right. So do you think that because of the quality of service of guys that you have in the department, that is one reason why Londonderry gets some of the calls that it gets, because we do have such high quality people working? Like hazmat and such?
Yeah, I think it's the high quality of people that we have, but I think it's the type of town that Londonderry is becoming.
Right.
It's growing. I got here. We got 1,236 residential units that are on the dock right now that are being built, and over 987,000 square feet of commercial space.
Right.
So this is just within this last year, and these are the ones that I know about right now. So that's all I'm trying to do, is just prepare for the future. The fire department has to grow along with the community, and this is just a step in doing so. We haven't hired any people since 2002. So
quite a long time.
I think it's time.
And the town has changed quite a bit since 2002, and it definitely seems that this is been a long time coming, certainly. And are you concerned that without these steps being made, is to some extent kind of quickly, that these big businesses and this growth isn't going to come to Londonderry, that people are going to leave?
You know, and that is a concern of mine because, you know, when these people come in, they look at their insurance ratings, they look at what the, you know, the infrastructure is within town that provides their, you know, emergency services, and if they, you know, if they see that, you know, the number of simultaneous calls that we have, the number of times that we're having to call in mutual aid, and they can't rely on us to be there to provide that service, I think I could see it could raise a concern, you know.
Interesting. So, can you also, you mentioned that there's a lot of this new growth in Londonderry with the residential units coming in and such. Woodmont Commons, I've heard, is coming. Is that part of those numbers as well? Or
It's not, actually.
So there's even more?
There's even more, and like I said, these are the numbers that I just have here. And, you know, a lot of this is based on, you know, 3 of these projects that are being built, we get what we call impact studies. And these impact studies are done by a third-party company. And just these 3 that came in, you know, Grand Estates on Button Drive, which is the assisted living, Wallace Farms, and then another one, another assisted living facility, that identified almost 2 firefighters right there.
Gotcha.
Just as
Okay.
that's a third-party review. So
Right.
seeing this information, you know, I'm not making this up. I'm not saying, you know, we need this. This is statistics that are coming to me saying that, you know, with these additional facilities coming into town here, this is what we project that you're going to need.
Right.
And this is not even touching on the Woodmont Commons project, which is slated to start breaking ground next spring.
So,
Yeah.
and these are projects that are not projected projects. They're projects that have gotten pretty far in the process to break ground. Which is, so what do you think that do you think your call volume will double between now and 2 years?
I don't know if it will necessarily double, but it will definitely increase. You know,
Substantially.
Substantially. I mean, the assisted living facility, it's a new avenue here in town here that I'm not really sure what to expect.
It'll be
I
different.
can only base it on what I'm seeing in other communities, and it's going to tax us, I bet you, probably close to 200 calls a year.
Wow. And with especially assisted living, you tend to get the families that come and visit a lot.
Yep.
So you have a lot more traffic, you have a
yep.
lot more accidents, you have a lot more things that stem from those kinds
Absolutely. Yep.
of buildings. So what, I mean, since 2002 when the last firefighter was hired, what, how do you feel that the calls have changed since then to now? They've gone up, I assume, certainly as the town has grown. To what extent have they gone up? Do you know the numbers on that?
I got those numbers somewhere. I don't have them with me.
I didn't know. I was just because I was thinking about if we could add, if you figured out.
I
what
have, actually, stand by.
Or maybe what percent the calls have gone up every year in the last 5 years or something. Maybe that.
Yeah, I got it broken down into numbers. I don't have it broken down into percentages.
Either one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're looking at, you know, since 2009, we've gone up probably 400 calls a year.
So since 2009, the calls have increased by almost 400 calls every year.
Yep.
So I can only imagine how, going back to 2002, how they could have gone up as well. So you've been running on a pretty thin.
Pretty lean budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to be. I don't know how. I don't know any business, which this is not a business, which is the most important factor. But businesses can't run that way, let alone a service company. In this case, a service industry where you are 24/7. You have to be available all the time.
And that's what, you know, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's what I want people to understand. You know, it's been said that you need to run the fire department like a business, and unfortunately, we're here to provide a service. You know, and that service requires people to be there. And you know, when I run short of people, when I have people out on injury and I have people out sick time and stuff like that, you need to replace that body because it provides a function on the fire ground. And you know, it's been a little point of contention, you know, within the last couple of years here, and I'm hoping that we can get beyond that and move forward.
Sounds like a good, necessary plan. So you mentioned that the airport is one of the unique features of Londonderry. I think a lot of people think of the airport as being part of Manchester because it's called the Manchester Airport. And Manchester Airport has had immense growth compared to Logan, and a lot of people fly to Manchester now. How much of the airport is really in Londonderry?
Actually, 70% of the airport is in the town of Londonderry.
So how does that change your involvement in the roles of the airport?
Well, like I had mentioned before, with the training that, you know, my personnel have, is we're all certified in what they call crash fire rescue. So we're the second responders if they were to have an incident, you know, within inside the fence up at the airport. You know, we provide them with assistance and backup for you know, commercial
The
or crash
entire
fire.
airport.
Yeah,
Right. So Londonderry is one of the unique towns that's really serving a huge role for the Manchester Airport. It's not just the outer line edges of the airport.
It is, and I think, you say that, and that's what's unique about Londonderry is we have a lot of different features within our town that, when people try and compare us to other communities, that these communities don't have.
Right.
We have 15 miles of interstate, we have this industrial complex, we have power plants, we have an airport, So there's a lot of stuff going on here that you need the specially trained personnel for.
And a certain number of guys to
And
do
a
those
certain
jobs.
number of guys to do it.
Of course. So, well, thank you very much for being with us. I really appreciate it. And there's anything else you'd like to add before we go?
No, I just, again, thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to seeing everyone out there on March 10th to vote for Article 14. It's very important to me. It's very important to your fire department, and thank you for your support.
Any tips on all the snow out there that I should
There is a few
do
tips on
better
the snow out there. It's
to
snowing.
avoid accidents?
It's snowing out again today, so I'd just like to get out there to let people know to keep their vents cleared for their furnaces when they have these power vents. Have working smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors within your homes, and check the snow load on your roofs. And if you need assistance, there's contractors out there now that are removing snow. I know they're very busy, but it's getting very heavy, and what I'm anticipating here now with the weather warming up a little bit, that snow load is going to get heavier and just cause further problems. So get it addressed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Please go out and vote on March 10th, and you can see the text of Article 14 online.